What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope everyone's having a great day. So you have caught me leaving the dump, doing my little job I do from time to time, which is coming up here to the local landfill. I say local, this is actually a county over, but the one that's in my county actually takes me longer to get to. So anyway, I just dropped off all of the garbage and stuff in the house. That was a nightmare. It was so bad I had to actually wear like nitrile gloves to get it done. In case you guys didn't know, I'm like heavily germophobic. So yeah, so we are headed back to my house now. But today's video, I was having a hard time coming up with something. Like you said, I've been struggling through a lot of like having motivation issues due to the whole cancer situation with my mom, but I'm gonna try to not think about it too much today. But what we are going to talk about is something I don't think I've done a video on. I know I did a video on the origin of the lower truck stuff, but I don't remember ever doing a video on the origin of where this build even started, the whole backstory behind everything, because I've gone to the story how I got it, but I haven't gone to the story about what made me decide to build it and stuff of that nature. At least I don't think I have. I guess we could use this as a, well, actually I think I did talk about it in the POV Drive video I did. But, yeah. So I guess this video will be about what got me into cars in general, since I just realized I've already done a video on where the truck came from and the whole backstory behind that build. So I guess today's video will be just how I got into cars in general. So for those of you that don't know much about me, I am 20 years old, so I haven't been around for too long. But yeah, my car history goes back to when I was, well, about 2 months probably, when I first came home from the ICU. I was in the NICU when I was first born. I was born about a month premature, and I had a bunch of health problems when I first came out of there, so I was in desperate need of a lot of care. So I was in the NICU for a while. Once I finally got out and went home, my dad pretty much started the whole car world for me pretty quickly. I got my first Hot Wheel, which was a Ferrari F355. If anyone knows, that's probably my favorite exotic car due to that reason alone, and plus they just sound freaking good. I mean, you can't deny that. Sure, they're old as garbage, but they're still really cool to me, and I'd love to have one day. I think it's literally the only Ferrari I'm really interested in owning. I used to be like a huge Ferrari fanboy. Now I'm like, I'm into just, you know, more into domestics and imports than I am exotics. But yeah, my first Hot Wheel was a Ferrari F355. I had a couple Ferrari F355s, but also had a Pikes Peak Focus, which is why part of why I love Pikes Peak. I mean, I've seen so many race cars that go for Pikes Peak. They just look really cool. The Pikes Peak Escudo and Gran Turismo, otherwise known as the Grand Vitara here, was so cool as a kid. I thought it was amazing. I never actually thought 900 horsepower was possible. Back then, I thought it was just something that was like you know, a myth, hitting 900, but it was so cool seeing a car in a video game that had it. But we'll get into video games here in a moment. But yeah, the original OG kind of love for cars came from the world of the world of Hot Wheels, and I actually wasn't one of those that had Fast and Furious and still their start like a lot of people did. Fast and Furious kind of came later for me. Due to the fact that, you know, your brain doesn't process memories until you're 4 years old. So, I mean, that's kind of my situation. I didn't see Fast and Furious until I was like 5 or 6. But it easily became my favorite movie. It is still my favorite movie, the first Fast and Furious movie, because it had all my dream cars in it. It had the Supra, it had the Skyline R33, it had the 240, or the Silvia. It had, you know, the weird Maxima, which I wasn't like too crazy about. And of course all the Civics. You guys know I love Civics, so that was so cool seeing them all in the movie. But pretty much before that, when I was about 4 or 5, before I'd actually seen Fast and Furious, ironically enough, I had played Gran Turismo 3 on the PlayStation 2, and my gosh, was that like the Kickstarter. So Hot Wheels were like my real life car toys, and then I had, you know, the game where I could drive, you know, technically a real car on the game. I could feel how the engine works. I could feel how how suspension travel works, and weight transfer and all that junk. It's what got me interested in motorsports. And, you know, obviously I'm not in a vehicle that's really meant for it. This is going to be a drag truck anyway eventually. But it got my interest in racing. And ever since then I've been like, you know, I love watching Le Mans. I don't watch NASCAR as much as I used to. Heck at all, really. I don't watch NASCAR anymore. I used to watch it a lot when I was younger. I guess, side effect of being born in Georgia. You just have to watch NASCAR. But, that game was really what really got me in gear with cars. The Hot Wheels were the good start, were the push start, and then, Gran Turismo as a kid was like what got into gear and, got things going for me when I was younger. And no complaints. I love that game to death. I still like to play Gran Turismo 3, even though the game is severely outdated now. I mean, it's a 19-year-old video. It's an 18-year-old video game, about to be 19. I keep thinking it's 2020 already. So yeah, growing up, I played Gran Turismo 3. I never knew Gran Turismo 4 was even a thing. I never knew 5 was a thing until we got a PlayStation 3, and I got 5 Prologue from Blockbuster. I thought that was really cool that game was coming out. I was like, wait, where's 4? I eventually wound up picking up 4, but after I'd gotten 5 and 6. 4 is probably still my favorite game in the series, in case you're wondering. But as I got older, I went to car shows. I, found, where my tastes line up. And that's always been kind of like in the middle of everything. I've always been kind of an import guy with a little bit of domestic thrown in. A lot of people can say contrary to that now that I own a domestic, and I know a lot more about domestics now than I do imports. I still love my imports. They're still probably where my heritage lies, I guess you could say. That's where my dad was. My dad didn't really get his first domestic until recently with his Mustang. But yeah, I've always been into the import scene. I think my next car is probably going to be an import. But yeah, that's kind of the whole gist of my heritage, I guess you could say. But as I got older, Gran Turismo was still kind of like my most available resource to learning cars. And I played a lot of it as a kid, like I said. Once Gran Turismo 5 came out is when things really got hectic for me in cars. I played Gran Turismo 5 pretty much every day when I was 11, 12 years old, because that's when that game was out. We had a blizzard actually in January 2011, and literally every single day I was in my parents' bedroom, because that's where our PS3 was at the time, playing Gran Turismo. My mom couldn't take naps, she couldn't do anything in her room because I was always in there playing Gran Turismo. She hated it. But that's just what I did as a kid, and I learned so much about cars. I actually didn't meet anyone playing online Gran Turismo until Gran Turismo 6. I didn't meet anybody playing Gran Turismo 5. But when 6 came out is when I started meeting people. A lot of you guys know some of the people I've played with in the past, like Bullet Train and some of my other friends and stuff like that. My friend Kenny down in Florida, I played with him a little bit. Hey, it's a Gen 2. 4.0 Gen 2. Still good though. I always know quick and easy. That's limited though, so he does have a lot more features than I do. Anyway, as I was saying, I didn't really have a lot of car friends until I got this, actually. When I was in high school, I was kind of in the truck crowd for a little while. I wasn't really big in lifting still. I'm still not. I was a lot more open to it back then than I am now. Back then, I was like, maybe I'll lift a truck one day. It probably won't be anything but like a 1500 maybe. I used to be all about, before I had this, I was a bit of a bow tie guy. I wanted a Chevy 1500 so bad when I was younger. I even looked at a 95 Sierra 1500 that had 170,000 miles on it, so a lot less than this, with the old throttle body injection 5.7, and it would have been a decent truck, and it would have been a lot more buildable than this. I'm not gonna lie, but although I like having the more modern features this has, it has it's a little bit more safe, I would say. Even though that truck was the exact configuration I wanted out of a 1500, I wanted a single cab short bed V8. That's kind of what I wanted. Granted, that didn't work out, and I'm still bummed about that, because I really wanted the 1500 V8 for my first truck. But I've come to learn that midsize is kind of like where I like things. I like having a smaller, more car-like truck than I do like a bigger truck-like truck. So in high school, I had a lot of people that were in the trucks I was friends with. A lot of you guys remember Ethan. I did videos with him like a couple times when I was still in high school with his two Silver. He had a Silverado. Then he had an S10, then he had alongside the Silverado, and then he sold the S10, and then sold the first Silverado. We got a Sierra, wrecked that one, and now he's got another Silverado that's like LS2 swapped, I think, or something like that, 6.0. Well, 6.0 is an LS2, but it's an iron block 6.0, so it's the actual truck motor. So it's pretty cool. I've always, kind of leaned towards, the mid-size stuff, even though I really wanted the 1500 single cab. It was more just to fit in. That's really why I hung out in that truck crowd. I was not into building lifted trucks. I just liked having friends that, were like-minded, at least a little bit, with, being fans of, cars and stuff. My friend Ethan was very open-minded. He loved imports too. He was more into trucks than anything, but he did have a soft spot for stuff like, I think it was the Skyline and the Supra and the Z's that he was a fan of. But I've always been, I used to be a VQ guy too, but not as much anymore. I'm more into domestics now than I am really anything. I still love imports though. I think the Camaro or Corvette's next for me. But yeah, and that brings us today. I've got this, and I've got my friends now, and we got the friend group with the mostly imports now. I'm pretty much the only domestic. Mine is Michael's Charger, but obviously he has a lot more imports. But I think that's going to wrap up today's video. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. Have a good one, everyone.